I disagree.
All right, we're getting into the weeds with this one, and I'm really excited. We asked you guys to really think about the way our superheroes are using their powers and tell us, in your opinion, what you think is either the most unethical superpower or the unethical use of a superpower. And let's see what you guys have to say, because I'm really excited for this one. Drew said, I think that depends on the source of the superpower. If the power is part of the superhero or some kind of natural extension of their being, then there's nothing more ethical or unethical about it than any ordinary act by a non-powered person.
Oh, wow.
I
That's
don't know
actually
if
pretty
I
good.
agree with that, though.
I mean, I think, and maybe I'm reading into this incorrectly, but I think they're saying more it's about the moral fiber of the person, not necessarily the power.
Yeah,
Which
but
I
I
think
don't
is
think
kind
the
of
moral
interesting.
fiber of a person is what it defines, like,
If a
ethics.
power is ethical, okay, no, I mean I'll disagree with you on that, but I see your point. I do see your point. I can see why there would be a pushback on that one.
All right, Alex says telepathy. Sure, yes, you can read somebody's mind, but at what cost? You're still in physical danger, and you can decide how you want to use telepathic powers. You cheat in any kind of test in school without even studying, and you can know dirty thoughts, and you can cash in and pretend to be a psychic. Okay. I'm behind that. I'll get behind telepathy.
Yeah.
Phil says every time Professor X wipes people's memories to prevent them from reacting to mutants in general or the X-Men in specific, or even keeping inconvenient truths from his own students, the most egregious example being when he covered up the fate of Vulcan's team in the first failed attempt to breach Krakoa.
Yeah.
Anthony
Oh,
says,
wow.
has to be when... Oh, okay. That was a hot, quick reaction. Anthony says, has to be when Charles Xavier used his psychic powers to shut off Magneto's mind, thus leading to the horrific and extremely powerful genesis of Onslaught.
Man. Xavier's a repeat offender. He is.
Oh boy. Oh yikes. Michael says, didn't Wanda in the comics kill a bunch of Avengers, then warp the whole world to the House of M-verse, then on TV bent a whole town to her will without their permission? You know
All
what?
true.
Technicalities. Adrian says Batman could have healed Gotham, got on the board of Arkham because his mom hired executive behavioralist psychologist and psychiatrist.
Effective behavioralists.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah, I really
okay.
bombed that. Had someone oversee charitable donations. Ever wonder how many families the cost of the Batmobile alone could have saved from abject poverty? Batman made Gotham worse.
See, you know what? This one is in particular something that kind of burns me a little bit because Batman. Well, depending on what you're reading, Batman didn't build the Batmobile. Like, there's actually a mechanic in Gotham who did, and so in that, when you follow that kind of logic, it's sort of like, okay, Batman is actually providing money to someone who needs it in the community of Gotham City,
Mhm.
as opposed to like outsourcing, I don't know, a million military grade weapons to make this car that he can just like kill people with. But anyway,
I think
that's my
this
high
person's
horse.
argument to that would be, I mean, he gave his money to one person to build the Batmobile versus spreading out the funding across several orphaned children.
Yeah, and I understand that, but I mean, Robin was an orphan. He adopted him, and a lot of the times the comics actually point out that he actually is trying to help Gotham. So I don't know.
I mean,
That's the whole
he,
thing.
he could have helped those people out of poverty. He could have built a Batmobile. He could have bought Twitter. Who's to say?
Oof.
You're right. Yes.
I'm sorry. Too soon. Too soon.
My God.
My apologies. My bad.
There you go.
We'll move on.
That could actually factor into this conversation. Actually, yeah.
We'll do it. I'm going to try and read this one correctly. Brian says, I always had a little bit of a problem with Peter Parker selling JJJ pics of Spider-Man's exploits. One time he even posed photos of his fights with the Sandman after the actual battle had ended by throwing handfuls of sand into the air and launching pointless punches at the fallen grains of sand. He justified it to himself somehow, but it never really worked for me.
I remember that story, and I remember that story, but I can't remember what comic it is. But yeah, that's actually hilarious.
John says Spider-Man Far From Home. Tony Stark leaving $1 billion satellite to a raging hormonal teenager was just downright unethical, even more so when you consider an entire bus of kids were almost destroyed by it. Jake says people got to stop using the boys' characters when they're so purposely portrayed in that fashion.
I mean, it's still, the question is unethical use.
Hmm.
That's okay.
That's fair. Seamus says Star Fox from Marvel, his power is to make women be attracted to him, and he's used it to hook up with multiple characters, and what's in the comic pages is just the ones we know about. That I have so many feelings about that.
Interesting. That's your boy Harry Styles.
Oh, that's a bad look. Although now I'm not surprised that Harry Styles was cast to portray a particular character, knowing what I know now.
Exactly right.
Jeffrey says nothing. Superpowers are above the law and morality. I don't think that's how it works.
Oh God, we found a Dr. Doom in the audience.
Jesus H.
Or more like Lex Luthor.
Gene says Flash screwing with the timeline over and over.
Oh wow, 31 likes for that one. That's a lot. Yeah. Okay.
Ken says Batman dressing a child up in a colorful outfit and sending him out to face deadly criminals.
Okay,
That's
you got me
okay.
on that one. You got me on that one. I can't dial that back. You're absolutely right about that. That is not a good look.
The optics are not great.
The optics are not great.
Can I just say that there were a lot of Batman notices and
really?
suggestions in the thread? We had a lot of people comment, and Batman popped up in there more than once, and more than once of them was because of his child negligence and like taking young preteen boys out to fight crime with him. So,
Gosh.
I mean, look, that of all the arguments you can make against Batman, that's the one I'm not going to argue with you about.
Oh.
That's the one. That's the one where I'm like, yeah, you probably have a point there. That's fair. Batman a fascist? No, I'm not doing that. Batman a cop? No, I'm not doing that. But child endangerment? Yeah, I get that.
You got me there.
You got me there. Ashton,
Mhm.
what do you consider an unethical use of a superpower? Let's talk about this.
All right, I got 3 here. And I've not picked specific characters. A lot of people in the comments did hone in on very specific iterations of these things, but I've gone really broad. The first one is invisibility for sure, because there's not a single damn thing you can do with invisibility that is both cool and ethical.
Right.
So just
so
right
true.
off the bat, it's a problem. The second one is X-ray vision. Not necessarily unethical, but it's got there's a line there that becomes pervy and unethical very quickly.
Very quickly,
so,
yes.
Too many implications for X-ray vision.
Right.
And then third, I actually think, and someone leaned into this with their Flash answer, anything that has related to time travel, warping time, looking into the future, looking into the past, I think all of those are unethical. I think any sort of messing around with time, as it were, is a big problem.
Now, I saw there were a few people that mentioned specifically Civil War II, where Captain Marvel kind of basically creates like an army to kind of prevent something from happening based off of someone's psychic prediction of what will happen, and in the process she ends up arresting a lot of people for no reason.
Perfect.
And
See, that's what you want.
right.
You love that.
And I saw a lot of people taking issue with that. So, and I get that. Like I mean, in that story, I think she's meant to be in a very gray area. So I don't think that they're trying to make her look like a good guy. But yes, I agree with you on that 100%. Any other
like
unethical?
In Loki, there's a lot of things that happen that are towing the line of ethical, and I was like,
But you know what? Here's the thing with Loki, it kind of works because he is already classified as a bad guy. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's just sort of like, okay, how far is like, that's the one thing I did like about Loki is like they definitely had moments where it's like, how up to the line are you going to take this? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
How far are you going to let him get until he pulls back? You know, and I think they literally waited until the last episode before he's like, oh, wait a minute, maybe this isn't okay.
Too late by then.
Absolutely. Any other ones that you want to throw out there, Ashton? Because I totally agree with you on invisibility. Okay, I'm going to give a specific example, but I'm not going to get too. I'll try not to get too into detail here. But Hollow Man. Have you ever seen Hollow Man?
I've not.
You have not. It's Kevin Bacon. It's a movie. It's basically The Invisible Man, right? Like that's the gist of the story. And I think it's really interesting that you mentioned invisibility because it seems like historically every story about invisibility ends up in these very murky, like immoral places, like the original H.G. Wells story, Hollow Man, and then the recent Invisible Man that starred homegirl from Mad Men. I can't remember her name right now, but they all kind of
Elizabeth Moss.
depict. There you go. They all kind of depict the invisibility as kind of, yes, unethical by default, which I think is actually pretty interesting and pretty fascinating. And like, yeah, I don't know. I don't even, so much so that I don't even know if I can recommend Hollow Man.
Okay.
I mean, I think it's a well done movie. But yeah, some of the stuff that Kevin Bacon does in that movie is like, ooh, okay.
Great.
Yeah, it's Paul Verhoeven, for those of you who are familiar with Paul Verhoeven. So, Paul Verhoeven likes to take it there. I saw a few people say Identity Crisis. I totally agree with him on that for several reasons. The mind wiping of Batman to erase the assault of Sue Dibney, I'll say, is kind of interesting. I have never liked Identity Crisis. I always thought it was kind of a gross story, to be honest. But in particular, that particular bit I thought was kind of like, that's probably the most interesting aspect of the story, is like Batman, who values his detective mind being wiped of an entire memory by his own Justice League members, because he's too much of a stubborn SOB to let something go, which I thought that was interesting. I thought that was really cool, but the rest of the story is a little too ugly for my superhero stuff. The other one I think is kind of funny, but kind of like, okay. And even as a kid, I always kind of thought it was a little weird. Superman 2. Clark Kent goes through this whole arc of losing his superpowers for the woman he loves, right, Lois Lane. They get it on in the Fortress of Solitude, and that's important that I bring that up, right?
Okay.
And
are we going to finally settle the debate if sex with Superman would kill Lois Lane?
I mean, there's also that. That's a fair point. I think Kevin Smith kind of settled that debate, though. Johnny's like, no, we're not going to settle that debate.
No, not in this show.
For those of you that want that debate settled, go watch Mallrats by Kevin Smith. I think he settles that debate pretty well. But yeah, they get it on the Fortress of Solitude, and then some Phantom Zone villains show up. Zod shows up and destroys Metropolis. He gets in this whole big fight with them, and at the end, I guess he two things happen. At the end, I'm sorry, early in the movie, when he doesn't have his powers, he gets bullied by this guy in this diner, right? And he totally gets his ass kicked by this other dude in the diner, right? And towards the end of the film, when he gets his powers back, he goes back to the diner just to physically humiliate the guy, which is just sort of like,
what?
Like, you're Superman.
I have so many problems with that. One,
Right.
yeah, that's insanely unethical. But two,
Insanely
and more importantly,
unethical, yeah.
so out of character for Superman.
It's
He
very
would
out of
never.
character. Right. That's the other part of it, too. The whole movie is, people like Superman 2. I feel like the whole movie is kind of really out of character for Superman. But the final thing is that afterwards, or I think maybe even before that, he goes to the the Daily Bugle, and he kisses Lois Lane and makes her forget that he is Superman. And yeah.
Wait, hold on. Did you say Daily Bugle? Don't you mean the planet?
Daily Planet. I'm sorry, the Daily Planet. Yeah.
I was too hung up on the Daily Beagle.
Right. And he kisses Lois Lane and makes her forget that he was Superman. And
so
I've
know that she was gonna forget.
No, that's the other part of it. He just kind of like sneaks it in and just makes it happen and just kind of moves on. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm glad you brought that up, because that's the other interesting thing about Spider-Man No Way Home is at least Ned and Mary Jane in particular know ahead of time that Peter's going to erase their memory of him.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's a very thin line that movie manages to kind of wiggle around.
Yeah, I think any consent issue is going to be unethical. So I definitely tiptoed around that one. But in general, like doing things against people's will is fully unethical.
Yeah. And so people love Superman 2. And Johnny says Ozymandias. Johnny, you want to say something about Ozymandias?
No, I was gonna let you finish up. I just wanted to bring that up as also, but never mind.
No, I'm just rambling at this point. But yeah, no, I mean, yeah, Ozymandias is Another one for sure. I mean,
Yeah,
definitely
that
the
was the one
villain.
that was one that popped up in the comments, and
Yeah,
what was it, to kill millions to save billions type mentality
yeah.
or whatever.
hmm hmm
Edward Huey saying today happens to be the day that Jason Todd was killed by the Joker.
Oh,
I
interesting.
read that as a
Is that
question.
really? Oh, I did not know that.
I didn't know that, but yeah.
Gubalda says, "Don't forget he pays for the damages to the dinner to cover it up."
That's
That didn't cover
so
it up.
wacky.
Like he tosses a guy through an arcade machine. Like could have broken his neck and killed him. Like just yeah. I like yeah. People love Superman too. I've always taken issue with that movie. I just some cool parts in it, but the things that Superman do are a little sketchy. That's all I'm saying.
Mm.
All right. Any more? Anyone else want to chime in? Johnny, are you good?
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
you
Did
know
you get
what we
that off
need
your
to
chest?
mention?
no. Go ahead, Ashton.
What's up?
The super cool child murder that happens because Anakin's a Jedi.
Oh well, yeah.
That was pretty unethical.
I feel like we bring that up at least once every 2 months.
I will literally shoehorn that into any single conversation that I can. I just need to remind people that he committed genocide against children.
I mean, that's a real thing. Like, I could just see conversation Ashton. So, Ashton, what do you think about the national deficit? Can we talk about the deficit of Anakin's morals when he killed those
Can
poor
we talk about
younglings?
the deficit of younglings?
Like, right.
What about the children?
You're right, exactly. I was really glad in Mandalorian that they showed that Grogu was kind of like the end result of Anakin's slaughter. You know what I mean? Because I was just like,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm like, put this in perspective for us. Like, I
Mhm.
don't think people really understand that Anakin's just really not a good dude. So maybe putting an innocent face at the base of it, I think, is actually pretty
Yeah.
cool. What is this?
We also
We
have
got
a
some more.
comment here.
Yeah.
Spencer saying, "With the Aquaman arc where he is allergic to salt water and has to absorb the water present in the blood of people, count as unethical?"
Huh. It's kind of weird.
I was not
I
aware of that
mean,
storyline,
yeah, yeah, that's kind of weird. I've heard of that before. I don't think I've ever actually seen it. Ashton, are you trying to wrap your head around that one?
Yeah, I was really trying to work that one out. So that's a
Yeah, that's right.
toughie.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I think that might have been the Jeff Johns comic. I'm not sure. But yeah, that is another interesting one. That is another interesting one. But you know what? This is why you can't get too realistic with superheroes. And I will
No.
always say this because the deeper you go with these things, the more realistic you want to get with them, the more it breaks down. Like, you
Oh,
know what I mean?
yeah.
It just falls apart. And that's really not the point. You're not supposed to break these things. You're supposed to, keep them fun.